Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe, where we look at a history of Hawaiian comics. Before we get into that video, I had a couple of notes. First, I want to thank everybody involved with Maui Comic-Con. This video was recorded after Maui Comic-Con. A fantastic weekend, and many thanks to everyone involved, and especially Alika Seki, the owner of Maui Comics, and the founder and the guy who runs Maui Comic-Con, and the person who actually contacted us about coming out to this event. And he will be in this video as well. He's kind of our guide to the local comic scene. So many thanks, Alika, and everyone involved. The other note is we recorded this video right before we flew back home. And as a result, we were sort of running out of time and trying to get as much done as we could, and made some mistakes. Alika had pulled a lot of comics, and they were kind of scattered around the office where we recorded, and we missed a couple of big Hawaiian cartoonists in this video, so I want to shout them out here in the beginning. First, Stan Sakai, the creator of Usagi Yojimbo. We have done videos on Usagi in the past. I recommend you seek those out if you're unfamiliar with his work, or if you are familiar with his work. He's a fantastic cartoonist, one of the great creator-owned comics in American comics history. And part of the reason I wanted to add this note in the beginning is so we could show off this beautiful drawing that Alika had prepared for the video. The other cartoonist I want to mention is Dennis Fujitaki. I know his work from Delgado, a beautiful full-color 80s series that he did, but his career stretches over many decades, a very accomplished cartoonist with a lot of history. I think this is the first time we've done an episode like this, looking at a history of a local comics scene. I'm sure, we barely scratched the surface on this, so if you have anything to add to our history of Hawaiian comics, please leave a comment below this video. Thank you and enjoy. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
I'm Kikuo Johnson.
Alika Seki.
And we are going to do a Hawaiian comics here. We're in Maui, home of Alika Seki, and we've got a box of Hawaiian comics that we're going to go through, and you guys are going to walk us through what you know and show us some cool stuff.
Nothing more Hawaiian than Marvel Comics.
Barry Windsor Smith in particular.
Right, yeah. But we're not here to talk about Barry Windsor Smith or
Eric Larson.
Eric Larson, thank you very much. Blanking on it. We are here to talk about...
You hear Kikuo Johnson pretending he doesn't know. Don't say that he loses that New Yorker street.
Right. Yeah,
Who's
right.
this guy? We are here to talk about this Iron Man story by Steve Leialoha and
Bill Mumy.
Well, I don't know much about Bill Mumy. Can you tell us about him?
Well, everybody knows him from Lost in Space, but the reason I know him is because Steve Leialoha and Auntie Trina Robbins came out here and told us, and they're like a wealth of knowledge, but Steve Leialoha was in a band with Bill Mumy called Seduction of the Innocents that would play at San Diego shows and stuff like that. And the famous image of Jack Kirby and Roz Kirby dancing together, you look in the background and that's Seduction of the Innocents playing.
Wow.
So it's just like that one image alone is so much comics in one.
That's one of the
spot.
most kayfabe things I've ever heard.
And Steve told me that story directly. And this story, Bill Mumy wrote it, but this is about something that happened on Maui. The Ritz-Carlton was being developed in Kapalua, and they found Iwi, Hawaiian remains, on the site, and they continued with construction. Obviously, the Ritz-Carlton exists today, and so they found them, and this is basically like a protest piece, essentially. I mean, I'm not trying to bring heat on Steve Leialoha or anything, but he kind of brought the Hawaiian perspective. And same story, Iron Man's working on a development with one of his millions of shell companies or whatever. And they find Iwi on the site.
Yeah.
And the spirits, and this is the beginning of it. This next double-page spread is essentially the spirits chanting the story to Tony Stark.
So it never got designated like an archaeological site where it would be handled with sensitivity or anything like that?
So I'm going to just get technical right here, and there's a burial council, and so there's something called incidental finds, meaning that once the construction starts, all those archaeological sites that were marked before have treatment plans and plans to work around them. but anything else that's found in the course of construction is considered an incidental find. And they reinter those bones, they move them around, they do whatever the hell they want with them, actually. And there's problems with that to this very day, but that's kind of like their workaround to treating all archaeological things properly, and that's what happened here at the Ritz.
Yeah, and so what's fun about this story is, besides just kind of the protest theme, I got this as a subscriber. This copy, if you actually look at it, has a little bit of a crease. I don't know if that comes up on the camera. That's from being jammed in my mailbox when I was 10 years old. And I wasn't, this was, the basic theme of the story is actually very similar to like there's a Brady Bunch episode where one of the brothers like finds
the tiki
idol. Yeah, like super Western gaze, like fakey thing. But this is like a super kind of turning that on top of its head, taking Tony Stark as like the symbol of colonization and all that stuff, and actually inserting real Hawaiian language in here, and this unmissable frame right here,
drawn by a Hawaiian.
That's really important.
And that's the theme of, I think, today's show. I didn't pick all the books that are about Hawaii, because there are hundreds and thousands. I'm talking about stories that are by people from Hawaii, Hawaiians themselves. These are the stories that would probably count in this history. So it's a very small history, surprisingly.
Yeah. And this panel right here begins to talk about the overthrow of Hawaii in 1893, illegal overthrow that Bill Clinton apologized for, and it was just nuts as a kid to have this to have this appear in culture when so much of the rest of the culture was kind of whitewashing these kinds of things,
just ignoring it completely.
Yeah. So props to Marvel Comics that they let them get away with this.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, like, what editorial knew what they thought, because Marvel Comics Presents is such an odd comic. It's cool that these things exist where like you could have some creative freedom, and who knows, maybe fly under the editorial radar a little bit to write a more personal story and couch it behind Iron Man.
I feel like also Uncle Steve is such a fixture in those Marvel hallways. He's a fanboy from before fandom existed, and like, he's just in this weird position. I think he knew that he could just do that and lodge it in there somehow.
And just to give him a little more props, he did I believe he did the inks and color here, and just real admirer of this gradient
Beautiful.
that he gives to the north side of Kauai there.
So this next book is Kukai Comics, clearly in the style of underground comics of the 70s. I think this was done in 71. The one credit, like, we don't have a lot of information on who this guy is. I don't know anything about him. Chicken Man of Manoa. So Manoa is on Oahu. That's where the college is. And there is, should we censor that? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a thing. That's so funny.
I'm super excited to look through this. I've never seen this in my life.
This is a very rare one. Not a lot of people have this book. And just to, like, a little shout out and a flex, the antique freak Shane Rosberg, also on Market Street, down the street from my comic store, this is his copy of Kukai Comics, and you can see there's different colors on the cover. There's different kinds of binding on each of them, all purporting to be the first printing, and there's no reason to think it's not. They just probably ran out of whatever and did whatever they could to get it done.
Yeah, ran a second color. You see the orange runs on both of them. May have run out of ink. May have thought this looks cool.
Yeah.
It's worth noting for those that don't speak.
I'm sorry.
Kukai. There's a little illustration there telling you what that word means.
Little poop emoji ahead of its time.
That's it.
This is great, and I will add that these are bigger than a standard comic. Looks like about a magazine size.
Yeah, they fit in a magazine size. Yeah, they're exactly magazine size, to be honest. Yeah.
So that's something we often note when we're looking at like 80s self-published comics, is that when you're self-publishing, I feel like everybody's you're approximating, like you're trying to make this thing. So that's pretty cool, man. Part of the authenticity sometimes is getting that odd size.
Just spending the week here in Maui, there's a vibe that there is a little bit of a hippie community.
There is definitely, like, the psych rock. A lot of them met on Maui, like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. There was a Jimi Hendrix concert up at
Seabury.
It was at Seabury? No, I thought it was up at
The film Rainbow.
Poly.
Rainbow Bridge.
Bridge.
Part of that was filmed on the Seabury Hall campus.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's incredible. And my house when I was a little kid was right behind Seabury. Like the horse pasture was right up against the Akana's yard, and we would go in their yard and feed the horses.
Look at the rigor of that
I
illustration.
really like
And that's what I'm saying. Like this is like keeps up with anything from the 70s, and this is 71. This is early 70s.
It's just one cartoonist who does this piece.
I
or is it
feel
an
there might
anthology?
be other
This looks
credits,
different,
but I
though.
only
It
see
does.
the only credit you see is Chicken Man of Manoa.
I see Raven.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And I mean, the Crumb influence.
Absolutely huge. And so far at least, these are like one pagers. I wonder if they showed up originally in some kind of weekly magazine or.
So that's the other thing. There are other college publications that I've tried to get a hold of, and those are even hard. I've only seen one existing and trying to find it. I've seen 4 copies in my life of this, so I know it's at least
Wow.
that
Wow.
there.
Wait, can we read this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the cynical joke in Hawaii you hear often is the missionaries came to do good and did well. And here we have the coming of the missionaries. Of course we're here to civilize you heathens. After I have baptized you, I'll do your daughter. Oh man, rough stuff.
Hey man,
Wow.
you're speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and the missionaries took up a bunch of land as well, right?
Alexander
sure
and
did.
Baldwin were the children of the first missionaries, so that tells you all you need to know about their motivations.
We go from the missionaries to us.
Hey,
I'm
you know
going
what?
to be roasted.
This might be a good time to shout out Dennis the Menace in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because that is a fine piece of cartooning, obviously, Hank Ketchum, and it's and the perspective is historically valid and very interesting. But, and then there's this side of the tourist, the local side. I don't know where that is, though, somewhere else. Maybe that's a Korean bar.
Yeah, the cartooning is just
So Raven-
amazing. Like the
Raven
drawing
and-
here looks like a slightly different style too.
Yeah,
a
so-
little departure from that Crumb style. Yeah, Raven from the
So
inside cover.
the 2 credits so far
just
have been Raven
beautiful.
and Chicken Man of Manoa.
Yeah, they're
like a
trading
very
it off.
rigorous hatching and pen line.
Anybody there's people on Oahu who probably know about these guys and are like screaming at their screens right now. So please give us that information. I would love to.
Yeah,
if
but-
you had any more comics from these guys, because this is like fun, good cartooning. And we don't.
Ooh, that's even like a S. Clay Wilson kind of vibe.
It's like a Where's Waldo for the signature.
Here's some of the psychedelic.
Yeah.
I wonder if this was like connected to the college in any way.
Maybe because like I said, there are a couple of indie comic publications for UH that I've seen around.
Little single panel cartoons.
Scattered.
I love seeing like like a local publishing scene,
Oh.
a self-publishing scene like that.
I just want to ball you. Oh, there's a swastika in the back.
Yikes.
What the hell?
Man, the rigor.
I love that lettering.
High Camel says get humped.
Look at how strange this is. Like sci-fi letter, the future lettering, and then really bizarre.
You would see that
Design.
exact approach in like Robert Williams' Zap comics and things. Like this guy, they're steeped in San Francisco underground.
And there's a like I said, for that psych rock connection to Hawaii, there was that.
Yeah, you can almost see like the posters and stuff that inform the like the undergrounds in San Francisco. You can see that influence here for sure.
Cheap airfare. Oh, here's another. Oh, that's
I
good.
like
The
there's
ball
this,
sack
and then it comes back, but it's not.
Thematic rhythm.
That's right.
Gotta use this for a class. All right, here. The cockfights.
Oh wow, wow. Okay, we've got at least 3 cockfights in these comics.
Yeah,
So that's not the
some cultural importance.
Very literal.
yeah.
I think I know that guy.
What a spread this is. No pun intended, but not to sleep again with this Raven artist.
It's approaching that outlaw vibe, man.
Yeah, it's
Like that
really
almost
good.
like
Stippling and cross hatching.
no, this is before Blab, but Joe Coleman's stuff and the black and white Blabs has that vibe to it.
Yep.
Hey,
Put in
mom
that
and dad.
rapidograph.
It's clam digging season, folks.
It's really powerful to see just like how far Crumb's influence stretched at that period, especially because by the time we were reading comics, like the Undergrounds were dead for 10 years and just nothing like this at all.
Right.
The first issue was 69, right? So this is only like 2 years after.
Yeah, super psychedelic.
That's a good way to close it out, too.
Roy's first really sick comic.
That's that viscous ass Crumb liquid. Nice, man. Keep it rocking, Alika.
All right. So this next one, I don't know anything about. One of our customers found this at a garage sale.
Oh, dude.
And this is 1978 Captain Maui. So there are other issues of this out there.
This is the one we were talking about on the phone, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So talk story is like an expression in Hawaii that just means like
Wala'au.
Yeah.
You know what that means,
chat.
right, guys?
Just chat. Shoot the shit is what it means. Yeah. 1978.
So there's credits on this one, which is interesting, but I don't, not necessarily recognizing any of them. Captain Maui by Masaru Yamauchi.
Hey, Murdoch the Mongoose. Peppo. That's Peppo.
Peppo from
Yeah. We'll come back.
It's
to
coming
Peppo.
up. Remember Peppo?
Yeah.
Actually, it's the next book in the series.
Awesome.
How about that for some color?
Yeah. Looks like a marker.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Those toxic ass old markers.
So I guess it's a bunch of different. It's an anthology, but this Captain Maui is of most interest.
I've actually been looking for this comic for like 10
10
years.
This
I've
is
never
incredibly
seen it.
so. Kukai Comics is hard to find. This is hard to find. Pretty much anything Hawaii. Limited print runs on everything.
It has that Fletcher Hanks golden age kind of rhythm to it.
Primary colors.
Yeah.
Nice production, though. Like that color printing was pretty sharp.
So just here's the rest of it. But
Not a cheap book.
They all appear to be local creators, but the Captain Maui actually had a standalone book too, so that's why that was kind of interest. This is the first one I've ever Menahune Man. But this is the first physical copy of anything I've ever held that had Captain Maui in it, so that's a hard one to find. So thank you to Butch Holder. He's a collector, regular at my store.
Awesome.
Okay, so next up is Peppo. Peppo's Pigeon to the Max, which people in the mainland will write. This first printing was in 1981. You can already see 100,000 copies in print, 130,000. This is a very well-sold book, and a visual comics introduction to local culture. Because Pigeon is one of those things that you can't convey to people who haven't been here. And like when I moved to Boston, and I wasn't around people who spoke Pigeon, and I lost it. And they were like, say this, say that. And some kids would have been to Oahu when they were younger, and I was like in Boston, like it's not here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Pigeon is the Creole language that developed in the sugar plantations due to the industry importing labor from all around the world, including Japan, the Philippines, China, Puerto Rico even, and
German,
Portuguese.
The Germans were the Lunas, the bosses. So and every language lent like words to it, and they all became to understand each other through that.
So Peppo, so this book, it's funny that Honolulu Magazine, which is kind of like yeah, for real, not for real. But so you get little comics in here. The thing that actually really impresses me about Peppo's drawing is that because we have that unique kind of ethnic history here, he actually draws the distinction between like Chinese guys, Filipino guys, and Japanese guys.
Everybody has their own pigeon, man. Portuguese being notoriously the worst because they're so indistinguishable, and every word has a pigeon adaptation. And then you get the nerdy Japanese, it's a little more proper.
Yep.
And the Filipinos are heavy on the Filipino accent.
Yep. But I'm actually, especially in this, I think this is the first volume. In the second volume.
This is pretty good though, because where's Hamojang?
You leave it to Peppo to define hamajang with a Hawaiian word.
Kapakahi. Kapakahi is all messed up.
Hamajang means drunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kapakahi.
this is definitely not for like an outsider. Like the definitions aren't going to help you, but if you live here, this is hilarious.
Yeah, and it's a well-sold book, so it's like definitely culturally accurate. And there's not a lot of books like this, and that's why this is of importance.
Yeah, Honolulu Magazine, which is our, I guess, local magazine, recently did a list of most important literature from history, of the history of Hawaii, and that included Robert Louis Stevenson, Mark Twain, and Peppo, because this book is for every writer here in Hawaii. They look at this book as a resource.
This maneo, this word is not said much anymore, and like I was in Hana, and so I just picked it up because they would throw the word around, and I said it out here in town one time, and the auntie was like, I haven't heard that word before. Maneo is when you say when someone's horny.
When did you guys encounter this?
I mean, it was just on the bookstores. This came out in '81. I was born in '81, so by the time I was
when you were kids.
When I was a kid, it's all over. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's pretty much the only culturally accurate comic, And like R said, the other thing is in the language is more than just the words, or it's like the inflections, it's the attitude you have when you say it, and it's a very expressive language, and these pictures are just like, you can tell.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm watching a lot of this on the phone screen as we're recording it, and the black and white, like the spotting, reminds me of Hernandez Brothers. Like it looks like good cartooning in that sense.
It really is.
Momona fat.
Stylistically, like the finish isn't the same, but like just some of the spotting of the blacks.
Nah.
That's hilarious.
Oh, nah. That's good, man.
Pretty authentic.
Yeah.
All right.
Mo Betta. That was adopted by Spike Lee.
Oh yeah.
Mobetta Blues. Nergis. So Pigeon, it's also like regional within the islands. You know what I mean? Like people will mess up the Pigeon words themselves. Make their own. Like Nergis. This is just like like a bastardization that probably was just regional to that area.
Yeah.
Like over here, when people want to say duru, they say duju. No, that's like, but I never hear Oahu guys say it.
Super regional.
Yeah, it can get very specific sometimes.
It's funny too to think of like the number of copies sold. Like this super great seller. I would bet tourists would pick this up.
Yeah, obviously. It's a great, like, opihi. This is very cultural, picture, even though he's doing it the wrong way. I hope no Holly's getting ideas about this with the screwdriver. But look at this guy.
That's why he's struggling, man. Look how bad he's
it's like killing the guts in the
Screwdriver on the rocks. Oh, I see. Like a drink.
Yeah. Really, I shouldn't even say it on film, but
say it, man.
The real way is butter knife.
Yeah. Oh, butter knife.
Yeah.
Or the other show.
Or the other show, if you can get one to start.
Yeah.
Why would that be bad to say? Are you giving away like trade secrets?
I just don't want any Hollies out there with butter knives. that's probably a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home. Or don't try this on my island. Pilau. Yeah. We know some pilau fuckers that'll handle you if they catch you trying to pick opihi over here. Yeah. So this is a great book, obviously.
2 volumes. I hear that they're working on a double volume set, so still in print after all these years.
Yeah, still going.
They're working on a new edition.
40th anniversary.
Yeah, that's right.
So up next is another cartoonist, Corky Trinidad. He was in Honolulu Star Advertiser in the 70s and 80s, and these are some of his collections. Editorial cartoons, and this one was happening during the collapse of the Philippines with the Marcos family, the Vietnam, and obviously not shying. These are editorial cartoons, so getting right into it.
Oh, but they're strips.
Yeah, these are strips. Some of these are, and I'll be honest, it took meeting his son for me to. I got these books from his son, Lorenzo Trinidad, who does Trinigraphics on Oahu. Great guys, by the way. He teams up with Nobuyuki, and they do the Abject Army. But the scene is rich, and these guys are legacy guys. And this is people on the mainland will know Corky Trinidad, though. He made a pretty good reputation for himself.
This is looking closer to the Wizard of Id.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's like a contemporary of those that time with the Sunday books.
Yeah, even the strips in the Vietnam one had a like a Doonesbury kind of layout.
Yeah.
So these are like the single panel editorial
That's awesome.
with Imelda Marcos in the tank.
Yikes.
I mean, if anybody remembers living through the collapse of the Philippines in the 90s, the early 90s, this is like, you know, Imelda Marcos's closet full of shoes and starving Filipinos everywhere. Oh, there you go, 86. He also, I think he also did like movie cartoons, like in the previews. Somebody had mentioned something like that, but it was all, these are all Oahu papers.
Right.
What is your guys' relationship to editorial cartooning? Like, do you...
I know very little about it. Like, looking
Yeah.
at this made me think of how it's something I need to look at more, because obviously there are a lot of great editorial cartoonists.
Sure.
It comes up on the Comics Journal Top 100 list.
Right,
You know, Pat
right.
Oliphant is probably the guy that we see listed a lot, but it's just something I don't know that much about. You know,
Same.
haven't spent a lot of time with it.
Yeah.
Often admire their drawings.
Some
You
of
know,
the
like
drawings are so
Corky's
solid.
drawings look really good in there.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me that it would be something that would lend itself to doing movie stuff or pop culture stuff, because it looks like the sense of caricature is really strong.
So this next one, only a very few people know about this one. But
I am pumped for this.
This is from Makawao. This is my friend Jake Dar, his father Ken Dar, and him and a couple friends. They're Portuguese from Makawao, Paniolo guys, and this is Raphael Bagong. Bagong, if you don't know, is like a Filipino thing. It's made from fermented fish. They leave it in the barrel. The heavy foam that floats to the top is the bagong. The juice on the bottom is patis.
It smells like what you think it smells like.
Yeah, exactly. Rotting fish.
A quick translation. Paniolo is a Hawaiian cowboy. It's the word for cowboy, and Portuguese is just a slang for Portuguese. A lot of that culture, came over here. We got the ukulele from Portugal, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of Portuguese culture, and like it's part of the whole Pigeon thing. So these books were black and white on paper, and he hand watercolored most of them. He said some of them are not watercolored in, but this one, this is all the actual him watercoloring it. It's not like a print.
Bom ova ko'olave, it says down here.
And being Pigeon, being written by Portuguese people, like the writing of the Pigeon is particularly indecipherable. Like me and Jake read through it, and we were like, "What word is that supposed to be?"
and so that gives you an idea of how important Peppo's is, right? It can almost be like a
Yeah, I mean, this is advanced Peppo's.
The Rosetta Stone.
That's right. That's right.
Because upcountry Portuguese Pigeon is some of the densest pigeon you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
So, the first story, Porgy Madness, this is a story that my friend was telling me. So he comes into the to Makawao rodeo, and I like drugs. For what? I gotta knock out pigs. You'll have to talk to the vet. And basically she sends him away, and he just decides to go get the pig drunk.
and the purpose is to take the horns off?
This pig is really aggressive, and it's messing up other animals. So then there's the pig right there.
Badass.
So he gets the pig drunk, and then
Man, it doesn't look any easier to deal with.
This is a great little just farm
Right.
farm drawing. We got all the
Makawao is all the farm area. My uncle JJ Costa had a farm up there.
I
would
grew
go
up up
pick eggs
there.
on the farm. Yeah,
I
like
grew up between pastures.
it was idyllic. Like and horse pastures every other farm, and
Yeah.
I would like I said, I would go pick eggs with my uncle. My uncle JJ Costa's a Portuguese farmer, and he would take me around and tell me the birds and point to the steers and the bulls and be like, there's a difference between the bulls and the steers, boy, and pointing at the balls.
So he starts getting him drunk.
Yeah, pig gets drunk, gets aggressive, starts knocking shit around, and finally it goes down. And there it goes. Operation time.
Pliers one hand, beer in the other.
Yeah. And the pig knocks out. They clip the stuff and turns out the pig died from alcohol poisoning.
You texted me this comic just page by page,
Yeah.
and I savored every page. I love this comic. This might be my favorite Hawaiian comic, and it's just because like it makes me sad because this era of undergrounds. I don't know if this guy was influenced by undergrounds or if this guy was just
Yeah, no,
on his
I mean
own
this is
thing.
upcountry Mokwal, right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty hippie area too, Baldwin Ave.
Yeah, so it's possible he loved it and wanted to make his own, but just the idea that like those comics made people want to go, oh, this is just pieces of paper and staples. I can make my own and I can express my experience, completely unique experience that wouldn't have been recorded in any other way. Like this gets me so pumped to make comics, and it bums me out because in like 5 more years the question becomes limited to like, oh, what superhero will I do? What version will I do? And
this apparently there was a second issue of this, and they'd never made it, but his dad has the art for it still.
Oh.
And
This has come up a few times, not in Hawaiian comics per se, but like Outlaw Comics, this has happened. You know what? I just wanted to comment on.
Oh,
we
sure.
can keep going.
Go ahead, yeah.
But I love this page,
Green
like the
Harvest.
density and the lettering. It's a very graphic page, and it looks like it continues. You know, as you turn. I guess this is a new story.
this,
But
this
that
one's
found
about
art
Green
thing-
Harvest, which was they would take, the cops would go around and steal marijuana from everybody in Green Harvest, and that's how everybody got addicted to ice. They took our weed away.
Oh. It's definitely worth though pursuing that original art and seeing if it's if there's an opportunity to present it in some way.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to say too much, but I'm trying to get this reprinted, and the fact that Jake and Ken are still around helps us out a little. Bombs over Kaolave. I didn't actually read this story, but I think it's about dynamite fishing.
Oh yeah.
You think?
And look, with the tube,
That's hilarious. He's missing an opportunity for like the classic cartoon fish skeleton.
Yes.
Should be flying.
well,
flying
and
out of
then
that
so here's
explosion.
all the dead fish floating on the surface now.
Wow. See, that's the
I never
difference
like 'em
between,
like this.
somebody that's in a fishing culture
Yeah.
versus a bunch of New York cartoonists that are just drawing the fish, the cartoon skeleton.
I gotta say this, the spaces that he's drawing are like, there's a sense of depth in a lot of these drawings that I really like.
Yeah, it's wild. You wonder like how he's getting the encouragement to do this, who he's showing it to that's
Exactly.
going, this is great, do more, do the fishing story from last week.
Well, so it's him and 2 other friends that are, and so this is about the bombing of Kaolave, and wartime, World War II. I think this is like this might be a 3rd story,
It's amazing.
a 4th story, sorry, like a World War II story.
So Maui County is actually 4 islands, and one of the islands they used to use as target practice, and they just they bombed it out, cracked the aquifer, did a lot of damage to it, the military. So yeah,
Wow,
bombed
this
it.
is something
looking,
crazy.
or, some outlaw looking stuff here.
This is super.
Whoa.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
It's getting to be tighter cartooning too.
Yeah.
This is
This is something different right here. I mean, this is like they're in hell now, and the style is just like, look at this.
Wow.
Like, what is that?
I was gonna say like maybe this is like myth or legend, some kind of going that direction, because you've got history, you've got culture, all these different pieces in here. That's just incredible.
You shall die mortal.
Wow.
These are great.
There's interesting cartooning too, like from the way it's lettered to like I've seen like lettering in the margins, that's making notes and stuff, like pretty.
This is
pretty
completely
high-level
DIY.
cartooning.
Yeah. Here it is, all on one page. Every technique we saw in the whole book, all on one page. We got the stipling, the
Yeah. Thy Devil's Den. Okay, that's what that. The Devil's Den. Oh, okay. I was like reading it like a Y.
Wow.
That's great.
All right, I want to know if the back cover is also watercolored.
Yep.
Yep. Aloha. Goodbye, guys. 1987. That is awesome.
From the crew at Rainbow Comics.
Wow. That is quite a
Draw
find.
your own comic here.
Alika, how did you find this? And is this like commonly? Is there is this known around?
No, this is like I think they made like a couple hundred max of these, and this is 1987. I know his son. His son is a good friend of mine, and he offered to get. And this is honestly my prize. The one comic in my collection is like if you want to ask my top comic,
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, this is priceless. It's a piece of history.
I mean, the watercolor too just makes it so precious.
Right.
It really does. It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
So we're getting into the 90s. This is. I just have to put this out here to introduce playground culture of the Hawaii in the 90s. Every kid in Hawaii had this joke book, and this joke book. This is Frank DeLima, he's a local comedian. But this joke book is separated by race.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just to show you how the culture in Hawaii, every race is poking fun at each other. You got the Haoles, the Yobos, the Pakes is Chinese, book. There's Filipino. The Soles, the Buddha head is Japanese. Blalas and Tiras, that's the big ass Hawaiians. Porgy, the mixed plate. That's a mixed guys.
When did they cancel this guy?
Well, Uncle Frank is actually a beloved fixture in Hawaii comedy. But after this episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe,
I mean, let's hear your favorite. You must have memorized one.
all right, I'm gonna no.
Hold
You know
on,
what?
Look at that back cover real quick.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, Uncle Frank. He's having fun with the Portuguese, the Pakes, the Buddha heads. If you walked up to a Japanese guy and called him a Buddha head, oh man, there'd be some
That has a
scrapping going
different
on.
meaning nowadays.
Yeah.
If you go to
Wow.
And other Hawaiian minorities, just having fun with. But that's our culture, man. Like, that's how we express ourselves to each other. It's such a mix, and the humor is there, and the love is there. Nobody ever took any of these jokes personally, but this is what the kids were armed with. Uncle Frank gave everybody some bombs.
I'm curious if the current generation is still like how this reads to the current generation of local kids.
Well,
I grew up with
I would say in Oahu there may be a little more would turn their nose up at it, but here on Maui it's like, oh, give me some ammo, man.
Play the dozens.
When does Benji get his copy?
The mom already teaches them some pretty bad Filipino jokes, so. So this is just my bound copy of that Lia Aloha story.
Is that a story that you were aware of? Like when it was coming out?
No.
Did you come across it?
Steve Lealoha, Uncle Steve showed me his. Showed it to me when he came here, and I got it signed by him.
Alika, that's the whole Weapon X.
Yeah, this is the whole Weapon X run.
Okay,
Bound.
that's sick.
Yeah.
That's sick, man.
And now we finally get to the first local guy to actually do it big. Sam Campos.
Nice.
Pineapple Man. 1 through 4.
Probably a second appearance on Cartoonist Kayfabe.
Yeah, man. Because you guys were reading the Wizards, you popped in there.
Well, you were kindly enough to send us some.
Yep, that's right.
Pineapple Man
and you guys
stuff.
opened that box on air. That was awesome.
So the kayfabe audience will definitely know this. I remember reading this, buying this in the store, and then going home and reading Wizard, and it making it appearance in the pages of Wizard. I don't know if there was ever a picture of it, but it was mentioned at least twice, maybe 3 times. One of the editors really loved it, but I can't remember which issues.
This is kind of a surreal time for Hawaii people because we're used to not being understood or seen even by mainland audiences. And then the 90s, and so this is early 90s. This is also the time of the Pog explosion.
Yep.
Like, this is a weird time for us because Pineapple Man is in mainland comic stores now. Pogs are huge, which was a regional game that we've been playing for generations.
Yeah, check
You
this
know,
out.
I think
right
it's
here.
worth mentioning.
Let's get
Yeah.
those out there. So these are all from the 90s. So milk caps, they put them on the bottles. They're from the early 1900s.
Right.
This
So
looks like this comedian we just looked at, right, Frank?
That's Frank DeLima. Frank DeLima, yeah, that's him.
Oh, that's right.
There's some.
So these would fit right in the bottom of the plastic lid, and then this is the tab that you use to pull it out. And Haleakala Dairy, which is a local dairy on Maui specifically, decided to make a game out of it where you hit it and you flip it. And so Pogs, which is an acronym from a juice that Haleakala Dairy produced. Do you have a Pog?
There might be one there. It wasn't as important to me as the restaurants and stuff, so I had those on top.
Yeah.
So Fuchs, if you're from Maui, like, these Pogs are going to be giving you a flashback. But Fuchs is a grocery store that burned down and is now bought out by another family, so it's called like Karen's or something.
Kikuo, you said you were about to say what POG stands for?
Oh, yes. So Pogs was a juice produced by Haleakala Dairy that was a mixture of passion fruit, orange juice, and guava. So POG.
Yeah, and So this game dates back generations because actually in Japan they had collectible cards called manko cards, and they were circular cards of different sizes, but the milk caps would be the stand-in for that. And you just pile up your pogs and slam them down, and you would like paste milk caps together and stuff to make slammers and stuff. But these are all in the 90s when the mainland got into pogs. Hawaii businesses also doubled down.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
And now they're getting into like gold foil and stuff,
Kewpies.
man.
This
is like
Kewpies is still
I
around.
got 2 burgers there yesterday.
That's right. So this was playground gambling, is what this is, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you and we would
Look, even Dare knew. Take advantage of the addiction.
That's right. These kids already have an addictive personality. Better stop it.
So
They're ahead of it.
here's some early these are
there you go.
actual just milk covers from the 60s.
So these are pre-Pog era. We call them milk covers.
That's
always.
gonna make any Maui kid cry right there. Well, worse. Shishiro Manju. Yeah, there's a lot of good local businesses here. I gotta shout out my family, the Seki Machine Shop.
Oh, that's so mean.
Wailana Coffee House, which just closed 2 years ago. Tasaka Guri Guri, which anybody been to Maui knows what Guri Guri is about. Tasaka family, been at it since the 30s. Komoda Bakery. Everybody knows about Komoda Bakery up in Makawao. This place, Ooka's. So this is like one of the drugstores. It's a supermarket, but they would have like a spinner rack, Like this is somewhere you could get comics.
I mean, that's a designed pot. That's hand lettering.
Yeah. Ooka's Market. They were the biggest supermarket. Now the building that was Ooka's Market is now like a cancer place, clinic. Kitchen cooked potato chips. Best potato chips in the world. Anybody, hands down, fight me. 3 ingredients: linseed oil, potatoes, and salt. That's it.
That right there speaks to me, man. Cause
Eat the Cat?
Eat the Cat was on an hour before the X-Men cartoon.
Yeah, oh yeah.
right.
I was by default into all Fox animation. These are some like campaign pogs. Goro Hokama. McDonald's even knew what side their bread was buttered on. Here's some slammers. So these are illegal. In Hawaii, you would get laughed out of the playground for bringing a metal slammer. They'd be like, "What the hell's your problem, man?"
Dan Clow's out
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
in on the game.
Back in our day, we glued like 3 together.
Yeah,
and if you were smart, you'd sneak like a quarter inside.
Exactly. You tape the quarter of the inside to get that weight.
your paws.
Hell yeah.
It's a wild. Akibono.
Oh, mean.
That's a
Hawaii.
Yokozuna freaking
Hawaii hero.
dogs, man.
Yeah, there was in the 90s another thing.
Sumo,
that, like,
Akibono.
we had 3 Polynesian sumo wrestlers.
Konishiki.
They're all champions.
Yeah. Wasashi Maru.
I used to watch Akibono when I was a kid.
Yeah, man. That's action.
I just got back into it. Sumo is awesome.
Yeah, my grandma watches sumo. It's it's a big sport. It's bigger than football. And I just love how pimp those sumo wrestlers are when they win. And they take that stack of cash off the plate.
Yeah.
And the higher the rank, the bigger the stack.
When
So
they're just
awesome.
walking down the street,
Yeah,
like
man.
people move to the side.
Did you see guys out there?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. I went to like the Tokyo Edo Museum is the same area where the sumo practice, and all the restaurants serve the meals of the sumo.
Yeah.
Called chonko nabe.
Yeah.
And you just see those dudes
Well, my
rubbing.
my wife's dad, Benjamin Rivera, was a sumo wrestler professionally. He wrestled in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And that's who my youngest son is named after, Benji.
Oh, nice.
I wish there was still sumo around. He'd
Since it is Cartoonist
clean 'em up.
Kayfabe, man. Shouts to John Tenta, a.k.a. Earthquake.
So, Pineapple Man.
Yes.
Coming back to comics,
Yeah.
I have found Pineapple Man on the mainland after you brought it to our attention. Super cool looking art. Let's see a little bit of the art.
Yeah, so me and Sam Campos, since having opened the store, I got the pleasure to meet the guy, and he's just so awesome. And I was able to procure the original cover art to issue 1, which is never leaving my hands.
Drawn on blue line pro paper, like the stuff that floated so many 1990s comic shops, man.
There's that
Yeah,
color
here's
cover in comparison. It's worth noting the insides are black and white of these.
Yeah, and you can see it got wet. He's out there. He lives on the North Shore.
I mean, it's just there's moisture in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives out in Ka'ava, which is the wet side of Oahu, the north side.
It's such a like that 90s style is so obvious in this.
And so, can I say he was a contemporary and good friend with Michael Turner? And Michael Turner was courting him to try to get him to come to Aspen and be a full-time comics guy, and he just didn't want to leave Hawaii. And,
Can't blame him for that.
I know, man. Me and Jimmy are figuring out ways to to move the Kayfabe compound.
Anything we can do to help. And this is the original cover art to issue 3.
Yeah, you can see the leap in just the kind of control of the style between that was issue 1 and this is issue 3.
And it's still that thing of like hand drawing the feathing.
Yeah,
you know, like those.
But this is the
lines.
'90s, and so this is like candy to me. Like I love seeing this stuff.
Yeah, man.
I met Sam in '96. I would have been 13, probably right around here, 14, and and I just remember just picking his brain, like, what do you do? How do you get these published? And he was, I mean, he talked to me. I'm sure he doesn't remember for like 12 minutes, and super inspiring to have because out here, who else am I going to meet?
Few and far between. You're that guy now, Reed. So you better lend people your ear when they come up and bother you, man.
I'm more than happy to.
Where did that take place? At a comic shop signing? At a little festival?
No, he just happened to be in a shop on Oahu.
So one of his friend's shop is actually drawn into Pineapple Man too. One of the places on Oahu.
Was that the place on the Windward side by Windward Mall?
Something like that.
Yeah,
like I don't know the stores in Oahu very well.
Don't bury the lead on
Pig hunting. This is a very cultural thing out in here. Hunting wild boar. The way we do that is we have dogs. There's a dog flying off to the side somewhere over here.
Yeah, pups.
The dogs hold the pig down, and then you slice the pig's throat.
That's hardcore.
Let's
go do that after.
You guys want to go hunting?
And that's what I love. That's my favorite thing about these comics became more and more important to me as I've aged, and because Sam put in these kind of local details, really making it specific.
So this next one is a big one that's very culturally accurate, and it's something that probably doesn't have. Oh, not I'm sorry, not this one.
I was going to say,
Is bikini babes at Sandy's. You can tell this is at Sandy's because the church tower's in the right?
Wow,
that's awesome.
That's definitely a Hawaii scene. Okay, so we'll get Pineapple Man's great, but
good pose.
And he puts his mask on. But the big culturally important pages is the chicken fight. This is something that's not easy to convey to people who have not been to one or been to Hawaii and understand what they were here. But these are 2 pages in sequence from issue 1, pages 5 and 6, and drawn in 1995. So they would have like food vendors, T-shirt, chicken fight T-shirt. Look, Hawaiian chicken fight T-shirt. This is legit what a chicken fight would be like. The little kids, raising their chickens. My brothers raised chickens. They the front bangs. That's 90s, bro.
That Tony Hawk shit.
Yeah.
Bones Brigade.
This is straight up like very densely with local culture. Everybody had uncles who looked like this, man.
100%.
The tough guy uncle with the boto shorts on.
Yeah, you got to be tough to wear short shorts like that.
Right. That's every uncle in the 80s and 90s, man. Pineapple Man
cameo.
That's cool.
I think it's worth noting that the Pineapple Man face design, that mask, it looks like it's like some kind of Spider-Man or
like a Venom
or something. But what it actually is it's one of the ki'i. It's one of the if you see like the wooden sculptures of the Hawaiian gods, that's Ku's eyes. So
Ku, the god of war.
Ku, the god of war,
which is the fearsome. And this is more of the chicken fight, obviously. Guys betting on the chickens.
I have experience with this paper.
And look, blades on the chickens. They're going full blade.
Impossible to ink on. And you could see like the humidity of the region, just like how the ink line just like spider webs out. If you have climate control, like the elements are against you when it comes to inking.
No doubt about it. The other thing I'd point out is early digital lettering that is actually printed and then cut out in word balloon shapes, including the tails of the word balloons, and pasted on.
Yeah, I don't think it's digital. I think it's hand lettered, but just on a different piece of paper. Look at those O's, man.
Yeah, some of these look like...
You're totally right, because like those A's are completely different, the D's are different. Yeah.
Testament to the quality of the lettering, though. That it's pretty.
You heard that, Sam?
It is very consistent.
Yeah.
I think Sam lettered these.
That's solid.
This is Todd Bernardi. So this is modern day. We're breaking timeline a little bit. Todd Bernardi, you met him. Kukui Project. This is a Maui Comics exclusive cover. This
I like his work. I bought a bunch of his stuff at the Maui Comics.
He's a stubborn dude. He wants to do his comic in all graphite, man.
Yeah, I heard you guys giving him a hard time about it.
We give him crap.
I have no problems with graphite in comics.
Yeah, I think you and Todd have similar opinions on a lot of stuff. And this is Chase Tokutaro. This is Mandelstam, in the first zine that Maui Comics published, debuted at Maui Comic Con just last week. But he's another, process fetishist. He's
I picked up a couple of his things too, and you guys at home watching can see the amount of detail and work in these.
We went hiking, and he was out there randomly sitting at a pagoda, like working on his comic. He was like, "I'm a bit outdoorsy," and I'm like, "You better be around here."
Yeah, more Mandelstam.
That's a great little mini. I got one of those at the con.
I thought they were great.
Yeah. Oh, you published it, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Maui Comics' first published zine.
Yeah.
Look out for more zines, more objectionable foul material from Maui Comics. It's a nice romantic little ending with the deer rotting and the vultures the hawks picking at it.
Circle of life.
Circle of life. There's I think that was what and Walden Wong, who has Oahu ties, he's an inker. He was actually a protege of Art Adams, who worked with Art Adams a lot. But this is the Amadeus Cho Hulk, where he becomes the new character, Braun. So shout out to Walden Wong, thanks for that, man. This is my local kind of art folder. But in the timeline, we're in the 90s, right? So right concurrently with, and this is almost zero repute here, but people know of it. And this guy is from Kauai. This is Laser Beam.
Yeah, this is sick.
I've never seen this.
Yeah,
this is a self-published from Kauai, 92.
Whoa.
This is that mistake of like,
man,
the bent legs looking like amputee, and then you see it 2 times in a row, so it's like run around on those knees, man. That's so sick.
Ooh, newsprint.
Yeah, it's got that going for it.
I love that it's still got the thing from the.
Oh, look
yeah.
Got it where the penny savers are.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's Laser Beam?
Got to build
love
up
these
to it,
page
man.
layouts.
Yeah.
This is a power comic.
Totally.
Yeah.
You hear Evan?
Do the Power Comics guys really dig for this kind of stuff?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. How rare are these?
These, I feel
Because this
like
is
they're...
sharp-looking stuff. What I'm asking is, how can I get a
So this
Can
is
I
the only
find
set
these?
I've found by accident. I
Interesting.
only heard about them before, and this came through in a collection, and I of course held on to them. There's some
great
credits
looking.
on here somewhere.
back cover, too?
So I guess there's 7 issues, man.
Wow, that is
That was ambitious for a local comic.
Is this that template, that ruler template with the letters?
I think it is. That's what it looks like to me.
That's sick as hell.
I think by issue 3 they might have thought to put their credits in here. Let's find out who these people are.
You know what, man? To everybody almost that I got comics from at Maui Comic Con.
There you go.
Do better on your credits. I
Yeah.
was looking up a couple of the books, and I couldn't find any contact info or anything, and it's like,
And that's why I
put
made
your names
Chase
on there, man.
I
Make it
made
easy
Chase.
for us
I was
to
like, I
find
gotta
it.
do a credits page for you, bro. Like, I know you're about the art, but put a link
yeah, and
in
I mean,
there.
it's not limited to Hawaiian cartoonists. Like anybody, make it easy to be found.
Yeah.
That happens with all the stuff we get sent.
But even here, they don't have these people's last names in here. Carol Y and Gian Piero G.
Yeah, it's such good looking stuff too.
What a weird character design. The weird legs.
But it's a known property because people will bring up when you're talking about Pineapple Man and everything. They'd be like, "Oh, and Laser Beam? Oh, wait, here we
Look
go.
at that page. I mean,
Okay,
That's dope.
now I'm sold on Laser Beam. All right,
That
I'm
is
done talking
awesome.
shit about Laser Beam." That's a good one.
It's a very inventive
That's
spread.
awesome.
I like that.
A little bit of that late period Ditko in there.
Yeah.
Good hands.
Yeah.
It's a great effect of every comic,
Super
every
manga.
action comic has that.
Super manga.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is manga had a major influence, and that's kind of a good lead into actually the next stuff I got in the box, which you ask people what their first comics were, and comics was a very limited scene in Hawaii, and we should take a minute to talk about the comic stores of the 90s, which was me and Reed's childhood.
Sure.
Actually, you know what? That kind of works in with what this stuff is.
Oh, the Jade Man.
Jade Man's. This was a big thing in Hawaii. This was... Harry sold these.
Our boy, man, Tony Wong.
You guys talked about these on the show.
I love that you guys covered Jade Man.
I tell you, anywhere I dig, almost I find Jade Man.
Totally.
It's like
Send them to me. Send them
to
to me. I will be able to sell these.
Somebody told me that one time when we were out digging, and after about half an hour, he shut the tap off. He had as many as he could take. Be careful what you ask for.
Send them all to me. I promise you. There are people who are still waiting to finish their Buddha's Palm run. They come to me every day. They're like, "You got that Jade Man?" And
I'll connect you to somebody because
open the tap. I promise you, I can sell them all. Every single issue here in Hawaii is very fondly remembered.
They're not rare back home.
Yeah, that's weird, man. Because Perry sold them, so they're not necessarily rare here, but people like them and collect them and hold on to them.
Yeah.
And so that's leading into Perry. Where did I put that?
And you mentioned manga, and I'll just add these were coming out of Hong Kong, I believe. So Chinese comics.
Yeah, the art's incredible, like watercolor interiors.
And he's stayed active. Like he did a Batman graphic novel in color.
Oh,
in
really?
Like
12 or something.
Yeah, it's fairly recent.
Did
it's
an
very
Image
digital.
comic, right?
He did several Image comics, I believe. So, yeah. It's interesting to see his stuff evolve too.
I don't ever hear
You'll still
anybody
recognize
speaking
it,
of
but it's-
this stuff fondly, and when you're here in Hawaii, it's a different story, man. This is like
this is like OG. Like our shit is translated.
Oh yeah.
this is a promo pack from the comic shop.
Yeah, ours are like Mike Barron. Adaptation.
Doing the translation.
So,
Yeah, I
shout
like
out
the colors on these. They're so dynamic.
Shout out to Perry Margolin, the owner of Comics Hawaii, which later became Complete Comics, spelled COMPLEAT, under the bridge in Wailuku, the main comic store in the 90s that everybody would remember. There were like 5 or 6 other stores on the island too, and I had my friend Chris Wong send me his definitive list. His mom was co-owner of one of the stores, which was...
How unusual that logo is. It's like an upside down lightning bolt.
Which was Future Treasures, the baseball card shop right outside of Fun Factory.
Oh yeah.
We have a big warehouse Fun Factory in Kahului that's now at Diane's Gymnastics. But back in the day, that was like the place to be, was Fun Factory. It was a big arcade. And right outside was Future Treasures, another comic book store. And that was owned by David Anzai and Chris Wong's mom. I'm not sure what her first name was.
Alika, when this goes away, like there is no comic shop until you come back.
So what happened in 2005 is when Perry finally closed his doors. He sold a few subscriptions out of his house for a little while, but the store was gone in 2005. Then the timeline is there's nothing. No comic store here, and newsstands going away, right? So all the grocery stores and stuff are slowly reducing their stock. And after a while, there's absolutely nothing. I meet my mentor, Bruce Ellsworth, who is an Overstreet Price Guide advisor in 2020. I met him in 2010. And he gets me into the Price Guide in 2012 as a writer, as an advisor, and I ghostwrite some of his reports. So this is the first guide I appear in, and Bruce Ellsworth. This is an old picture of him. He was in bad shape. Bruce's Comics and Collectibles, Waiahu, Hawaii, and then. There's me, his ghostwriter, Bruce's Comics. This is pre-Maui Comics. If anybody's like want to get OG about Maui Comics, this is the start.
Nice.
And I write his report. This report is about some undergrounds, some of the UPC variants, and Daffy Gaddafi, because they just killed Gaddafi that year. So these comic stores, right? There was actually a bunch. There was Complete Comics. There was so where my store is now, Maui Comics, we're inside Request Music, which is now owned by a guy named Joe Alouetta. In the 90s, there was a bookstore on Main Street called Annie's Bookstore, and inside that bookstore was 2 racks, 1 bin and a rack, and it was called Joe's Comic Corner. That was Joe Alouetta, a young Joe Alouetta, who was very much a businessman and hustler. So when my store was in trouble and the pandemic was starting, and if I stayed in the mall, I wouldn't have had a store anymore. So I approached him and said, I noticed you're not using this corner. Can I just like kind of stage in here and like ride this out? And he didn't even hesitate. And then I realized, you're the Joe from Joe's Comic Corner.
I never made that connection.
Yeah, and so so I would buy comics from him. So we're already at Complete Comics, Future Treasures, Joe's Comics. That's 3 stores in the Kahului Wailuku area. There was this one set of young guys. They opened a store on the end of Wakea Street, by where So Special used to be, but now where PetSmart is.
Yep.
They or the pet shop, or what do they call it? And all they sold was new comics. It was the year that Clandestine was out. I remember it was a long room, and they painted it black, and there was a new comic rack on one wall and the counter on the other, and it was only new stuff. And yeah, I remember Clandestine. So it was that year, whatever year that was, and they only lasted a year.
Yep.
And then there was you could go to Lahaina at the wharf. The stamp shop on the second floor had a couple boxes of comics. That was all backstock, obviously, and but the real way, even before the comic shops, that people would get their comics is the drugstore racks. Nota Drug, Olka's.
I don't think I ever saw comics there. I wasn't going to those places. But
well, that's like 70s, 60s, and 70s. It's like the spinner rack, and then once Complete Comics and the direct market starts taking over, then it becomes these comic shops, and then the 90s boom happens, and then they're gone. At 05 is Complete holds on to the very end, and then they're gone after that.
Shipping is obviously different coming to Hawaii, so
I'm paying like 70 to 80% of cover price for every book I have.
Right,
so everything I don't sell, like if I don't sell 75% of my stock, I'm losing money.
Right.
You know.
Well, man, we were so blessed to have Perry's on the island, because in addition to all the big 2, he was stocking all the indies. I was buying first, Stray Bullets, and
he had great taste. He sold Ninja really Turtles starting at the second printing.
Yeah,
there's Turtles in people's collections. There's Viz comics in everybody's collection, and this is all a testament to Perry. Here's another rollover from Perry's generation. Is my mentor Bruce Ellsworth, before I even met him, bought the last of Perry's Warehouse. So a lot of the first stock that I started my store with, I bought Bruce's stock when he passed from his widow, and so Perry's last warehouse fueled the beginning of Maui Comics. So there is a kind of rollover, even though I never got to talk with the guy. I've never touched base with him, but there's other comic legends in Hawaii. So I'm going to take this moment to shout out Ted Mays, rest in peace, who passed away last year, only like 6 months after having closed Gecko's, which was a 30-year fixture in Oahu, Kaimuki, the one main store that I would go to, the one guy I could call up with advice for retail. Ted Mays is a great guy and a great fixture in the comic community, and he'll be missed. But that he was probably the diehard of that generation. Now it's all us new guys across Hawaii, and a pretty hopeful scene everywhere. So we got a lot of good talent out there.
Kikuo, would you get Fantagraphics books at that shop?
For sure. Yeah, they'd have all the Fantagraphics stuff there, and it's a testament to Perry for having all that stuff. I'm sure I would have fallen out of comics long before that if it wasn't for Perry.
He had great taste. He really did try. Like, we were all ex-kids, and he would be like, "That's garbage. Read this."
Yeah, he would.
He would smoke cigars in the shop. He had his dog in there.
I remember being like 12 and being like, "Who's your favorite artist?" I'm with my favorite Jim Lee books, and he's like, Mac Rayboy. I was like, what's that? I have no whatever. I know. Yeah, he's right.
Props to Perry Margolin, man. He was trying.
It's so important, like we've had Bill Boychelle from Copacetic on the show, and I mean he's turned me on to so many artists and books. And I think this is the history of comics for maybe the last 40 years or something. Once the direct market shows up and these stores pop up, it's where we find other cartoonists. It's just it's important stuff.
And props to you, Alika, for carrying on the torch, because your store is like, I had never actually gone through the request bins, and you've got an insane collection. And when I was waiting in the airport from Oahu, I heard that also from other people who knew where I was going. I was like, oh yeah,
really?
Yeah, on Maui, you know what the word was? Man, on Maui, they're more literate. That's what they said about
the
shop. That's what
I try. I try. I love to cater to the lowbrow, so I'm not going to try to be high maka about it, but. We try to be a little literate. We got our Kikuo Johnson books in there. That's how literate we are. I mean, just more. This is more of a background on Hawaii culture. We also got Japanese import culture more directly because we had a public channel called KIKU, where all this tokusatsu stuff, Kikaida in particular, Kamen Rider, and all that was fed directly from Japan to us. And especially in the 90s, it was like that's where we would get our anime and we'd watch it direct.
I see that NHK is playing on the other.
And once cable came through, my grandma, NHK is available here. They actually have like 3 NHKs you can buy.
That's the channel of man, Ben.
But that's they do the sumo tournaments on NHK, so you got to have that. But so big Japanese, and so like somebody like Chase Okutaro, who's younger than us, and me and Reed, of course, are ex-babies from the 90s. We were born in that stuff. Yes, the younger generation, and their way in is like manga and anime, and
sure.
yeah,
yeah,
and tokusatsu, Power Rangers, obviously, yeah. And Kikaida, shout out to Bon Daisuke, who does events. He did the Kawaii Comic-Con. He's around Oahu and stuff. Great guy, still around, touring. But that's kind of a background on the comic shops, leading into what our shop's about, where we come from. So that takes us through the 90s. So where my store is on Market Street in Wailuku is kind of like the cultural center. There's the Iao Theater, and this playwright Lane Nishikawa, who's also done work with PBS, and he's done some movies, did a play called We Were Brothers about the Nisei veterans, the second generation Japanese in Hawaii, more associated with the 442nd Regiment and Japanese soldiers. My dad was in this play, and I just lead that into, I went on the big spiel about Lower Main Street culture, but suffice it to say, this is a receipt from my dad's porn store on Lower Main Street. And so, there's a lot to local culture that might be lost to the annals of time. I haven't seen proper documentation of Korean bars in Lower Main Street anywhere.
I feel like Alika is setting up future appearances.
You need a certain word choice.
And so this is other stuff the University Press would do. Lee Cataluna actually is a writer with the Honolulu Star Advertiser now. A lot of journalists were doing these artistic expressions. Lee Tonouchi, who did a couple of books published in Pigeon, notably, and some award-winning stuff. But this is back in 01, some of the earlier stuff with these guys. And I don't know, some guy, I've got to mention it. I know you guys interviewed him already, but this is my reintroduction to comics. This is how I got brought back in. Some guy gave me his copy. Travis, you're never getting this back, by the way.
That cover, man, is so freaking striking.
And that's the Pu'unene Sugar Mill sketched in there.
I think
I didn't even realize that was a drawing. I'm looking
right?
at it.
It looks like it's part of the, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I must have given that to Perry. You must have got that from or whoever bought that.
This guy's name was Travis. Said I got it in 08, so he probably got it from Perry before he closed.
No ways.
05 is the year Perry closed.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Actually, real quick.
Yeah.
You keep going, but I want to show one thing.
So now this is all just a setup now for the modern Hawaiian comic scene.
These are the people that were at the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Boom. There's my contribution to cockfights.
Oh, that's great.
in Hawaiian comics. But I don't condone cruelty to animals, but I did go to that cockfight.
Did you win any money or not?
They all were looking at me like a narc, dude. Who's this guy?
So this is the Hawaiian Comic Book Alliance. These guys are from across all islands. Todd Bernardi with Kukui Project. John J. Murakami, whose style is compared to Peppo. He's mistaken for him a lot, but he does local greeting cards now and regular comic strip. This is Stacy Hayashi. They did a book called Journey of Heroes. Damon Wong is the illustrator. He's the current director of Bob's Burgers.
Wow.
This is illustrated by him. And Stacy Hayashi wrote it and produced this. And it's a movie on PBS now called Journey of Heroes. Go for Broke. Go for Broke is the title of the PBS movie. And Bon Daisuke is in that, as well as Peter Shinkoda, as some people might remember as Nobu from the Daredevil Netflix series. And this came from John J. Murakami, and just a sample of his cards. The dude's great. Cultural Boys Day. If you're Japanese, you know what that's about. Or if you're from Hawaii, you know what that's about.
They changed the name. Now it's International Children's Day.
Well, there's a Boys Day and a Girls Day, so it's like, what's Girls Day now?
I haven't followed.
I'll have to look that up. I'm going to get canceled for calling it Boys Day. And so here's the modern cartoonist, Kukui Project, with Todd Bernardi.
It's a great cover.
This is a Kubert School grad who doesn't have enough work out there, but Mark Gould, Native Sons. Here's some of that Amakua Guardians with Mana Comics, and this is Sister Shark.
Good name.
Here's a modern crossover with Pineapple Man popping up, doing his thing. I've got the original art for that cover right here. Oh man, my arms are getting tired from flexing. Genesis Seed, this is a zine. Theo Lee, I told you about Canilla Tripp, was a colorist with Marvel during the early aughts. He also worked with Wildstorm. And Gamma Dice. This is Kaimana Yamada. This is a out of nowhere hit. So we got the missile scare a couple years ago. We thought a nuclear weapon was headed towards Hawaii. And Kaimana Yamada just took that inspiration and ran. What if that missile really did hit? And it is one of the goriest, funnest outlaw books you ever seen. Like, and
check this out, squeezing a
you
dude's
think
head.
Until it pops.
you think you know where this book is going. You got all these like beasts and animals, and then you're in a church with a dude. He's got the zombie chained up.
That's always a good motif.
Yeah, man. Like, he's got the best and the They Live face going on.
It's an amazing looking comic.
It's so good, man. And like, he just finished issue 2, and it was supposed to, and this is my favorite part of the book.
Yeah.
This giant centipede. So if you're from Hawaii, this is like the stuff of nightmares. Centipedes are everywhere, and they'll bite you up, man. But this, and so DJ Cavalcante, I also got to mention him, and he's part of the Mana Comics group. But there is so many new comic creators out here. It's such a, as you saw how sparse through the decades it was. I held like 1 or 2 examples per decade. And the fact that right now in this time period we're in, there, like, I'm not getting everybody. I feel bad there's so many left out. And this is just a small sampling. Like, we are an embarrassment of riches with talent out here right now. So I just wanted to make sure everybody got a shout. Anybody I missed, comment and, like, make sure I sound like an asshole.
One of the fun things for us when we go traveling to different regions to participate in festivals and Comic-Cons are the regional talents that exist in every big city that we go to. And there are a lot of people who have immense talent and just haven't like broken to that wider level yet or whatever. But it definitely is very humbling when you come to a new city and see people who have all the chops in the world.
It's super exciting too as a fan.
This is Kaimana Yamada's first comic.
It's mind-blowing.
And he did it himself, everything, 100% himself.
It looks
very
really
awesome. Well, cool. Alika, where should people seek you out? Is it cool if people, write to you if they're looking for books?
Come check me out on Instagram at Maui_Comics, Facebook, Maui Comics and Collectibles. The email's MauiComicsandCollectibles@gmail.com. And also check out Maui Comic Con, because that's a great community event. You guys just did appearances there. Thank you so much for you've been getting tagged in a lot of pictures this last week.
Dude, you do so much for the community of comics on Maui. I know that without Perry's, I don't know where I'd be today, and I'm so glad that you are carrying that torch and bringing it to Maui. And I'm so glad that I was included and got to come home and be in part of it today.
Man, thank you for being. I mean, I was begging you for like 2 years. He told me, he said, I don't want to be at your con without a new book. I was like, nobody cares about a new book, man.
Yeah.
Kikuo, where should people find or follow you?
Follow me on Instagram, R_KIKUO_Johnson. That's the best place to find me.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Read more comics.
Read more comics. Make more comics.